everybody. Welcome to this forum for the City of Southfield election. We're doing two forums tonight, one for City Clerk and one for City Council. The City Clerk candidates will begin first, and the City Council candidates will be immediately following them, right around 7:05, 7:10. Today is October 3rd, 2017. This forum will be featuring the 3 candidates who have filed for City Clerk and the 8 candidates who have filed for City Council. You'll be voting for 4. The 3 highest vote totals for a 4-year term. The 4th highest vote total will get a 2-year term. The sponsor of this forum is the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. I am Tara Moon, a member of the League of Women Voters. I am not a resident of the City of Southfield. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, national, nonpartisan political organization whose members do the hands-on work to keep democracy safe. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the issues that keep our communities strong. As a League of Women Voters member, I have the opportunity to contribute in a leadership role such as this one that has great impact on local, state, and even national issues. If you are interested in learning how you can make a similar impact, I encourage you to pick up one of our membership forms here tonight or look at our website, lwvoa.org, to find out more about the League and how you can join. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The format for this forum has been established by the League of Women Voters. We ask that the audience remain silent throughout the presentation. If you have a question to ask, please write it down on a note card with a pencil and turn it into one of our pages who is circulating through the crowd tonight. If you at any time want a card, just raise your hand and someone will come to you. If you have a question completed and you want it turned in, raise the card in the air and someone will come to you to pick it up. And we need some questions, so write some down. Also, please take a moment right now to turn off the ringers on your cell phones. We ask that the candidates answer the question with their views only and not interrupt or refer to another candidate. The candidates will be answering questions submitted by you, the audience, and screened by League members for duplication and appropriateness. Our screener tonight is Judy Bateman. Please turn your questions into the pages. Susan Libetro, who will be circulating through the crowd tonight. All candidates will be given 1 minute.
Tanya Morris.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tanya Morris is our page tonight. She has note cards. She's at the back of the room. All candidates will be given 1 minute for opening statements in alphabetical order. Closing statements will be in reverse order, and candidates will also be given 1 minute. Most times, candidates will get 1 minute to answer each question. Know that when you turn in a question, it will be asked of all candidates. You can't direct a question to one candidate over another. All candidates will be allowed equal time to answer questions. Our timer is Kathy. She's sitting in the front row in the flowered shirt. Sometimes I might choose to extend the time that the candidate gets to answer the question if it's a complicated one or if I decide to combine a couple of questions. But I will let all the candidates and the timer know if I decide that. Kathy will hold a timer, a paddle in the air and let you know when you have 15 seconds left and when it's your time to stop. We will give you a chance to finish your thought if you're in the middle of a sentence, but we do ask that you respect the stop sign. Okay, we will begin now with the 3 City Clerk candidates. And then, like I said, after a short break, we'll feature the City Council candidates. So let me introduce your candidates for City Clerk. With us tonight, we have Tarita Darden, Derek Hale, and Sharika Hawkins. We will now begin with opening statements, and we'll start with Ms. Darden. Ms. Darden, your opening statement.
Yes, good afternoon, and I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for having me here today. My name is Trita Darden. I am a resident of the city of Southfield. I have been a resident for 25 years. My children attended Southfield Public Schools, and they are registered voters as well. I worked and operated my own office for Allstate Insurance, where I maintained a large budget. I also trained licensed solicitors. I am running for a Southfield City Clerk because I want to be the link to bridge our community together with our City Council and our Mayor. And I look forward to serving you. And thank you very much. And I ask for your support on November 7th.
Thank you, Ms. Darden. Derek Hale.
Good evening, and God bless everyone. And thank you for the League of Women Voters for allowing me and other candidates to voice their concerns and voice their opinions on running for political office. Again, my name is Derek F. Hale. I'm a former state representative. I served in the Michigan House from 1997 to 2003. I served in a leadership capacity when I was a state representative. I was Democratic caucus chair for 2 terms. I was legislative aide. I've also had the opportunity to work with Congressman Sander Levin. When this was the 17th district, I was a campaign coordinator for Congressman Levin. That's how I got my start. I had the opportunity to work with Dave Plawecki, who mentored me and got me involved in the political process. I'm a graduate of Murray Wright High School, Wayne State University. I also had the opportunity to work in the sports department at Channel 4 under Bernie Smilovich, and I've had a well-rounded, just enjoy working with all my candidates and also learning the city of Southfield. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Sharika Hawkins.
My name is Sharika Hawkins, and as you know, I'm a candidate for Southfield City Clerk. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and all of the residents that appear to be civically engaged. I am a certified municipal clerk, and I've been working in a clerk's office for the last 13 years. I started out in a clerk's office as an intern, and I relish the opportunity to serve here in Southfield. My husband, my son, and I are homeowners here in Southfield, and I feel as though my skill set, my education, and my certification as a municipal clerk and experience is a great component in leaving a process. And we've had a clerk here for 18 years, so if we want the process to be seamless, I believe experience matters in continuing the process of what the clerks does and administrating elections and vital statistics and codification of ordinances and things of that nature to move Southfield to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. We will now ask questions of the candidates, and candidates will rotate who goes first, and I will prompt you. So the first question, we'll start with Ms. Darden. Are you familiar with the designation of certified municipal clerk? Do you know how long the training is and who provides the training?
Yes, in reference to the certified municipal clerk, the training is comprised of 120 hours. And as a municipal clerk, it is not necessary to have the training. However, it is truly recommended that one receives ongoing training, whether you have a master's in a municipal clerk. I have also received my professional designation as a life underwriting training counsel, which is a professional designation. So it is something that I do believe that as a clerk that you should have. Also, as a newly appointed clerk, the training to administer elections is 3 days in Lansing, and I look forward to attending that and serving you as your next clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Darden. Mr. Hale.
Yes. The training is comprised of, again, 120 hours, but also you are up in Lansing through the Michigan Clerks Association. You randomly go through training, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and you randomly go through that continuously because things may be updated and changed over the period of time. But again, also, I like the opportunity to also go up to Lansing because by me being a former state representative, I had the opportunity to not go in, wait in the aisle or the hallway to answer your questions on the floor. I could go directly to the House of Representatives floor and debate the issues as it relates to helping out the residents of the city of Southfield when it's dealing with political issues pertaining to election material and election offices.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Ms. Hawkins.
As a certified municipal clerk, you do need 120 hours minimum to get this designation. The elections accreditation, that program is actually done through the state of Michigan, which is the 3 days that one of my opponents mentioned. But the CMC, the certification, although it is not mandated, it is definitely a help in helping you move forward to being a clerk. I've spent countless hours in training, countless hours learning and speaking with other clerks, and you can always learn. And with the process, it's 120 professional development points to get this certification, and that matters, and that's done through the International Institute of Municipal Clerks, and it's an additional training that's actually done through the state of Michigan, and that's an elections accreditation. And then it's other trainings that are provided through the Michigan Municipal Association of Clerks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. The next question will start with Mr. Hale. What experience and strengths do you have to run the clerk's office? Mr. Hale.
Oh, thank you. As I indicated earlier, a former state representative, I served in the Michigan House from 1997 to 2003, Democratic Caucus Chair. But I also bring leadership to the table. I've had the opportunity to study government also in Japan, Poland, Brazil, Spain, and I would like to open up the Office of Clerk more global, and to also reach out to the citizens of the city of Southfield. I would like to institute an ambassadors program to reach out to the students and also all the other residents of the city of Southfield, all the voters. Because as I've been going through the city of Southfield, door knocking, I've been asked a number of times, what is the role of the clerk? Who is the clerk? How can you help me out? And I tell them and explain to them some of the things as it relates to birth and death records. Certifying businesses, also helping out and registering voters, and also making sure the election process in the city of Southfield runs smoothly. But also I see things coming down the pike as it relates to how local control may be bridged, and making sure that the city of Southfield is protected from that.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Ms. Hawkins?
I think my experience as a clerk brings another level to the position, although there will be a learning curve here in Southfield, and I think that I'm equipped to curb that learning curve. But one of the things I think you have to do as a clerk is you have to recognize the needs of the community. So with recognizing the needs of the community, you have to be in the community to talk to residents to see what they need and what they want. You have to understand and educate the community on elections, on vital statistics, on what's going on in the city, and exactly what the clerk's office does. And I think if you're transparent and you are seen as an educator, because the clerk's office is the Google of any local government, that will serve you well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Ms. Darden.
I have over 30 years of administrative as well as customer service experience. The clerk is the check and balances of the city. I worked and operated my own agency through Allstate Insurance, where I was licensed and certified. I maintain a fiduciary responsibility. I also maintain a budget for the company. In addition to that, I've worked for Waste Management of North America, where I've handled contracts and procurements of contracts, which is important as a city clerk. Part of the city clerk is working with our city administrator and our treasurer and making sure that there is a balance between the monies that come into our cities, so that the city is represented fairly and that there are checks and balances. I would like to bring that forth before the people, and that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Darden. The next question will start with Ms. Hawkins. What type of machine or equipment is used for current elections, and do you think that there are any technical innovations that need to be brought to that equipment?
Currently, Oakland County just received new election equipment. As a current clerk here in the Oakland County, I actually was the first clerk in the county to roll out the election equipment, and the name of the election equipment is Hart InterCivic. This is the optical scan equipment. It is a user-friendly equipment, and it's much better than what we had before, which were the M100s. As a voter, one of the things that's awesome about this new equipment that Southfield will actually be rolling out in this November election is going to be no question mark when you put your ballot into the machine, because it tells you thank you for voting and an American flag comes out. Before, if you're a frequent voter, you will remember hearing those beeps when you put your ballot in. That's definitely been eliminated. So the county did a great job in moving forward and giving us the best technology to execute elections in a seamless manner moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Ms. Darden?
Yes, and the Hart machine is the new election equipment that is being used, and that is administered by the state of Michigan, and the Oakland County clerk decided on using the Hart machine as our newly elected machines. So I have not had the opportunity, but like my opponent, Ms. Hawkins, stated, it does utilize optical screening, and it does retain information based on the ballots and how you voted. So in the event there is a recount, there are checks and balances to help in facilitating that. And I would say that Southfield has run successful elections, and the current clerk has done an exceptional job for the 18 years of service as a clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Darden. Mr. Hale?
Oh, yes, yes. The Hart system is going to be in place, but also it's the ICP. And to make sure that what I would like to do is to make sure there are safeguards as it relates to hacking, making sure we protect our voting system, because there have been breaches along the lines as it relates from the Russians and other nefarious individuals and countries across the world who has been breaching our voting systems. But also I would like to say that I'm going to be mentored through this process also. Both Oakland and Macomb County has reached out and been able to implement this program, but I'm going to be mentored through this process by the Warren City Clerk Paul Bueno, who's going to be assisting me and taking me by the hand and also helping me through the process and learning the voting system as it relates to being a clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Ms. Darden, you'll begin the next question. What is the role of the city clerk, and how does she or he serve residents and employees?
Okay. Well, the role of the city clerk, we always say that the role, one, is that he or she is the official records keeper. So what does that mean? That means keeping records of our vital statistics. It means keeping records of our financials as it pertains to the city. It means transparency, so that our city understands what budget is rendered by the administration and how we are being accountable. That's what transparency is all about. It pertains to issuing licenses to our businesses, liquor licenses, garage sales. So it goes beyond the election process. Is all about customer service and rendering quality customer services, not just to the community, but also to our city council and our mayor, to ensure that our city works seamlessly. And that is part of the responsibilities of the Southfield City Clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Darden. Mr. Hale?
Oh, yes. The role of the city clerk is to be another ambassador for the city of Southfield, to reach out to all the citizens and residents of the city of Southfield, but also the vital records keeper, registered businesses, to making sure that the election process is held harmless and very efficient and very professional, but also making sure that the staff that you have is very professional and has the correct and proper training, because those are going to be the representatives of the clerk, or when the clerk is not able to be in the office, who may be at a city council meeting or a subcommittee meeting. But the role of the city clerk is to make sure that all the vital records are kept efficient, properly, and making sure that when a resident of the city of Southfield comes in for customer service, that you provide them with the utmost and professional training and business that's needed to run the city properly.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Ms. Hawkins?
I like to think of the role as a city clerk as the chief administrator of everything. Whenever you enter into City Hall, generally if you're looking for information, you go to the clerk's office first. The clerk is the clerk of the city council. The clerk is the keeper of ordinances, resolutions, and actions of the council, the custodian of the city seal. The clerk examines and audits all accounts within the city. The clerk administers elections. The clerk gives out vital statistics. So as you can see, the clerk plays a pivotal role in the city's operation, and knowledge in every component of each city department is very important to be a successful city clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. The next question will start with Mr. Hale. What will you do to outreach to the community and maintain transparency?
Again, as I indicated earlier in my opening remarks, I would like to create an ambassador program. I think that's vitally important. I don't want to be a clerk that's just behind the desk. I would like to do outreach programs throughout the city of Southfield, working with high school and elementary and junior high school students, which I have on the campaign right now. I have junior high school students helping me go door to door, learning the process. I would like to reach out to the senior citizens because they're vitally important, because a lot of them are handicapped, to making voting and other processes more convenient for them. But I also would like to, as I indicated also, that I'm a member of the German Marshall Fund and American Council of Young Political Leaders, the first African American from this region to participate in that program, but to take our Southfield Clerk office global, reaching out to countries like South Korea, Japan, Poland, Brazil, Spain. Those are the countries that I've had the opportunity to study government in. I think that's going to be vitally important to making the office local but also global.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Ms. Hawkins?
Can you repeat that question again,
Yeah,
please?
sure.
Thanks.
What will you do to outreach to the community and maintain transparency?
I think that if elected, the first thing I would do within the first 100 days of being elected is I would have a town hall to see exactly what the citizens of Southfield need, what the citizens of Southfield want, and from there I would put together a plan to implement that to see how we can best serve the community. I think it's important in order to get full community participation is that you have to know what the community needs. And as a clerk, I can say this is what I think the community needs, but it's better to have face-to-face contact and conversations with members of the community to see how you can best serve that. And with that being said, I think collective impact and just civic engagement will bring that and will birth relationships and partnerships to make the city clerk's office successful.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Ms. Darden?
Transparency. It's an interesting word, and it's a word that's used very loosely. But transparency, to me, it means disclosing to all of the citizens in Southfield as to what transpires in terms of a fiduciary responsibility, a budgetary responsibility, and advising our seniors, our youth, through social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, whether it's the newspaper, and keeping the people engaged. It means going out to our schools and meeting with our high school students and letting them know so they can partake in this process. So transparency means reaching out to each of our citizens and letting them know what is going on in terms of the monies that are being allocated and the monies that are going out. Again, the city clerk she is the record keeper, but she also serves as the balance, the checks and balances of our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Darden. The next question will start with Ms. Hawkins. In your opinion, as a candidate for city clerk, what should be the top priorities of the successful candidate within the first 90 days on the job?
As indicated in my previous response, I think getting out in the community and learning what the residents of Southfield want and need, taking if the winner of this would take office in November, and it's important to put together a plan, and through that I think you need to learn the operations of the city, meet with several of the department heads in the city to see how the clerk's office is involved in their day-to-day operations to be successful internally, because when you're successful internally, that then will make you, put you in a position to be better successful externally, because you can have other hands that's helping you with the situation. So in short, I think you just have to take an analysis of the situation and look for more information to move forward and implement the knowledge that you get to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Ms. Darden?
Well, in order to be successful, I believe that you would have to first, I really concur with my opponent, but you want to meet with the current council people, have an established relationship with your council, your mayor, your city administrator, your city attorneys, in order to make sure that the city is working seamlessly. It is important that we do keep Southfield the center of it all, and not just by diversity, but also by revealing to the community what exactly is going on in terms of our budgets, in terms of what is offered within the city clerk's office. And so I would like to continue education and work with our current clerk during this transition process, as well as the city council and the mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Darden. Mr. Hale?
Yes. One of the things I would like to do, I would like to work with and meet with the current staff of the clerk's office to make sure things are in proper order once the transition starts. But I also would like to making sure that the qualified voters list from Lansing is intact. I will be meeting with the Secretary of State immediately to making sure that it's done correctly, because Ruth Johnson is a former colleague of mine. I'm going to be making sure I maintain and strengthen the role that I have with some of my colleagues and also from Lansing. But I also would like to meet with all the different department heads, the workers from all different departments, from the city of Southfield, city council, the mayor's office on down, and also making sure that I reach out to the community and start reaching out and implementing my road show, so to speak, as it relates to my ambassador program through the city's clerk's office, so people can get a chance to know the clerk and they can enjoy working with me.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. I have one more question for you before we go to closing statements. Talk about an experience you've had as a member of a team. What are important qualities of a good team member? And we'll start with Ms. Darden.
Part of being a member of a good team is being able to listen, to be able to understand what other people have to say regarding their thoughts, their ideas. Sometimes you will find that, being a leader is not just being a dictator, but also you have to learn by listening to others. I've been a team in multiple situations. I've been a team through my humanitarian efforts with the Flint water crisis, bringing people to get them involved. I've been involved with a team in terms of helping with our city council, some people who are here who have been elected, knocking on doors, looking at the polls, making sure that our machines are working well together, are working efficiently. So being a team, to me, is incorporating all bodies and also being a great leader as well.
Thank you, Ms. Darden. Mr. Hale.
Yes, leadership, it comes in different forms and packages. As again, I was a former state representative. I was part of the leadership team when I was in my second terms in the legislature. I was Democratic caucus chair. One of the things that you see from leadership is you can mentor somebody, but you can see somebody who was not strong in one area, but over a course of period of time, you see them grow into leadership and to provide leadership, but to also provide input to something, to a cause or a goal. And just to make a note of that, currently right now I work at a federal at a federal health house. And one of the things that's very important to me when I see men returning from society and turning their lives around and providing them with leadership and goals and inspirations, and you see them a year or two later, and you see them, well, Mr. Hale, I'm a homeowner, I have a job, thanks to you, thanks to all the things that you have instilled in me. And that's what leadership is all about, is helping people grow and to develop themselves, because every one of you in here has the potential to grow into something. All you have to do is have to be inspired.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Ms. Hawkins.
I think you have to be an active listener. Whenever you're with a team, everyone is excited about sharing ideas, but the first thing you can do to be extremely beneficial to the team is to listen. And not just listen, but actively listen so that your attention is going directly to what they're saying. And you need to lead when it's time to lead, learn, and you have to be able to possess certain type of leadership. In certain situations, transactional leadership may be good. In other situations, transformational leadership may be good. So you have to dissect the situation to see what the strengths and weaknesses of the team so that you can have the best result in meeting your goals as a team.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. That concludes the questions for this portion of the forum. We will now hear from the candidates their closing statement, and we'll go in reverse alphabetical order. So we'll start with Ms. Hawkins. Your closing statement, please.
Again, I would like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. And at this time, I just want to talk a little bit as a clerk. As a clerk, I've administered 13 elections here in the county of Oakland, and I was a runner-up this past year for the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks Clerk of the Year. So I've really worked hard and had blood and sweat and tears in this field for the last 13 years. Never would I have imagined as a child growing up going to city council meetings with my grandmother that now I'm a city clerk and I have the opportunity to be a city clerk in the city of Southfield, and I don't take that lightly. I'm very committed to that. Look at my body of work. Look at my website, www.hawkinsforclerk.com. I'm passionate. Public service is all I know, and I'm very excited to potentially serve the citizens of Southfield. And in the event I'm unsuccessful, I will still be here. I will more than happy be willing to help my opponents in this transitional process because I'm a team player. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. Hale.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again, League of Women Voters, and God bless you for allowing us to come, but also to take what you have learned from this evening and take that to your family and friends and also to your block clubs. I think that one of the things that I didn't know I was going to do, but in this process, when I first decided to run, I was an election inspector for the city of Southfield for the last 3 elections under the leadership of Nancy Banks, where I had the opportunity to actually had to be at the election office at my site at 5:30 in the morning to learn what it takes to administer the role of being an election inspector, but also learning what the office is comprised of from bottom up. And I think that's vitally important. You can learn from the bottom up, but also learn from the top down. And I think that gives me the great skill set to administer the job of being the clerk, because I've learned from all different angles, but also by me being a former representative. I think that's going to be vitally important. There's going to be decisions from Lansing that's going to affect and impact local control as it relates to the city of Southfield.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Your time's up. Thank you. Ms. Darden.
Well, as a 25-year plus Southfield resident, I am the real Southfield. I've been here and I have voted in every election. And I will have to say that in the city elections, there has always been a low turnout. It is so important that we engage all of our citizens in voting in our city elections, because it is the city that makes the ordinances or amends the ordinances for us. And we can go to the president and so forth, but it is so important that we engage our youth, our elders through educational programs, and I do believe in working with our city council, our mayor, and other entities in making this city as great. No, I am not the appointed clerk in Pontiac. but together I will like to work with my teammates, the constituents, and anyone that to make the city of Southfield the center of it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Darden. That concludes the forum for City Clerk for the City of Southfield. Thank you to all the candidates for participating tonight. Let's give them a round of applause. We will now recommence this candidate forum, this time with candidates who are running for City Council. Here tonight is Myron Frazier, Sarah Habo, Harold Hill, Coretta Hogue, Nathaniel Lewis Jr., Michael Ari Mandelbaum, and Linny Taylor. Also on the ballot but not here tonight is Lloyd Cruz. So, candidates, same rules apply. Please do not address each other in your comments. No personal attacks. Also, audience, please remain quiet. Again, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand, and Tanya will come around with a card, and you can write your question down. When you want to turn it in, raise your hand, and she will grab it. We're going to start with opening statements, and then do questions, and then do closing statements. So we will start opening statements with Myron Frazier. Mr. Frazier.
Good evening. My name is Myron Frazier. And first of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting and sponsoring this program this evening. It gives us an opportunity to let the community know our thoughts and plans for the future. I moved my family here in 1980, and I've been a volunteer for the City of Southfield immediately following that through my Homeowners Association, the Planning Commission, Total Living Commission, and finally the council. I've been on council for over 20 years. I've seen the city grow. I've seen the city reinvent itself. Today we have a wonderful team, a team of the mayor, the council, and the administrator. We have a big job ahead of us, and we work well together, and as they say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I have four children. They're all adults. They each have their own families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Sarah Habo.
Thank you for our hosts for having this event, and also thank you to the residents for showing up to this event. My name is Sarah Habo, and I'm a candidate for City Council. I'm a Southfield Public Schools graduate, Vandenberg, Thompson, and Southfield Lathrop High School. I've learned Southfield values living in this community, and it's something I take pride in. The Southfield values mirror my family values, and we always put public service first. And I'm a legal aid attorney, and so I serve people in our community on a day-to-day basis in my employment. And I thought the best way that I could thank my community for teaching me these Southfield values was also to serve my community by running for Southfield City Council. So I hope you'll keep me in mind on November 7th on the election day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Habo. Harold Hill.
Yes, I wanted to reiterate, thank you for the League of Women Voters for having us here, because it does move the democratic process further and you get a chance to meet the candidates. So thank you again. My name is Harold Hill, and for the health of the city, I'm running for the Southfield City Council. And this is my first time running for a public office because I consider myself a concerned citizen and neighbor to the residents. I get out and talk to people all the time to find out what's important to them. I'm a proud resident of Southfield for 27 years. I moved here for 3 reasons: education, safety, and the city is the center of it all. Proud resident, and I'm here to stay. So, with that being said, I want to let you know that Southfield is one of the best cities, and as mentioned before, it is the center of it all. I traveled a lot in my past, and I'm going to sit back and make sure the city moves forward with forward-thinking, more forward-thinking on the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Coretta Hogue.
To the League of Women Voters, thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this event. My name is Coretta Hogue, and I've been a resident of Southfield for the past 17 years, and I am a candidate for the City Council. As a past trustee and commissioner for the last 7 years, I am positive that I would make an immediate positive impact to the council by bringing my unique and expansive set of skills, knowledge, and expertise, and such as a problem solver and an excellent communicator that will be responsive to all stakeholders. I offer my fairness, logical, and just thinking, all for the best interests of the community. I will work hard and be knowledgeable about community issues, concerns, and events. I offer decades of a solid reputation of serving the public and for professional administration. There is prestige in being a council member, for which I won't take for granted. It would be my honor to represent you as City Council. I ask for your support this November. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hogue. Nathaniel Lewis.
Good evening. My name is Nathaniel Lewis Jr., and I am a candidate for Southfield City Council. I'm a special education teacher, ordained minister, author, editor, public advocate, and a third-degree Prince Hall Mason. I have 20 years of experience as a special education teacher for Detroit Public Schools, 8 years of public office experience as a trustee of Southfield Public School Board, and 8 years of service as an ordained minister at Hartford Memorial Baptist Church under the leadership of Charles G. Adams. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in social and political philosophy from University of Michigan. I have 2 master's degrees, a master's degree from Wayne State University and a second master's degree from Ashland Theological Seminary. During my tenure as trustee of Southfield Public School Board, I received an award from Southfield Mayor Kinston J. Salver and former Southfield Public School Board President Michael Poole for outstanding service in public office. In addition, I received an award for being Distinguished School Board Member.
Your time is up, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Michael Mandelbaum.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. Thank you to the residents who came out, and thank you to the Cable 15 and the library staff for being here and helping with the event. I am Michael Ari Mandelbaum, current councilman and candidate for the same office. I moved to Southfield when I was 8 days old. I have been hooked ever since, and I love the city. Prior to being on the council, I served as a commissioner on the Total Living Commission, serving as the chairperson for 4 years. And since joining City Council, I have put my heart and soul into helping the city. I've put in a lot of hard work to get real results. I also sit as the secretary of the Southfield Nonprofit Housing Corporation, helping seniors and those with low-income housing needs. And just please remember to vote for Councilman Michael Ari Mandelbaum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. Ms. Lenny Taylor.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Lenny Taylor, and I am running to retain my seat on City Council. I have served on the Library Board, the Planning Commission, and I was appointed to City Council in 2009. I am currently serving on City Council. While on these boards and commissions, I work closely with the mayor, council, and administration on the city's master plan, planning and zoning for Northland, and sustainable Southfield. This has been a 10-year journey for me, and I want to continue my service on council with 3 main issues: transparency, sustainability, and safety. Transparency is the bedrock of trust in government. You should know where your tax dollars are going. While we're working on transparency, we also need to continue a sustainable Southfield and build a city that works for all of us. And while we're transforming into a modern, sustainable city, we need to invest in our fire, police, and city services to protect our future. These are the issues I'm running on, and together I believe we can build a city that works for all of us for the next 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Let me give the candidates a couple of reminders that I forgot to give you before we go on to questions. Don't forget that the questions are coming from the audience. Don't address them to me. I don't vote in the city of Southfield, so those are your audience back there. And also pay attention to the timer sitting right in the front row there, Kathy. When she's going to hold up a paddle that says 15 seconds, try to wrap up your thought, and then she's going to hold up one that says stop. I usually will let you finish your thought if it seems like you're going to wrap it up. But I will stop you if I have to. All right, We'll go on with questions now. We'll start with Mr. Frazier, and then we're going to rotate who goes first. I will prompt you to answer each question. Mr. Frazier, the first question. Morale amongst employees appears to be at an all-time low. If elected, how and what would you do to boost employee morale?
We have a spirit committee at the City of Southfield that works with the employees. But one of the things that would be helpful is if the city administrator, the employees don't report to the council, they report to the city administrator, and the city administrator could have a group meeting to find out what the problems are, form a team, small teams to address those problems, and work toward the solution, but let the employees do the work with guidance from the management team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Habo?
So one of the most important things is transparency. And one of the things that we can do to make sure that employees are satisfied and morale is high is that we can make sure that there's transparency in the hiring practices. There have been some issues with changing job postings and then not reposting them, and then just not being open about the process itself. One of the other things that has come out is that employees aren't feeling comfortable speaking at any of the commission or board meetings, and that's one thing that we have to encourage is participation in the process. You have to be held accountable when you are a elected official, and it's important that when people are trying to hold you accountable, you're receptive to that, because the only way we can create a community that fosters growth and transparency is that there is that open dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Habo. Mr. Hill?
And I would like to start off with the open dialogue that Sarah Habo talked about. Dialogue is a two-way conversation, and sometimes if employees feel that you're talking at them and not with them or to them, some days you find that employees may be somewhat disgruntled. And I have talked to several people, and some people have mentioned that they weren't happy about the way some things have gone. They don't feel like they have an open dialogue to talk to the leadership. And I don't know if it's a shortcoming on managerial portions or what, but direct contact with people and to let them know what you're thinking in the hiring practices, in giving out salaries and raises. I heard that they did not get a raise for quite some time. That could definitely foster a slight concern. So open dialogue is definitely needed, and you'll find out that a nurturing behavior really does help when it comes down to worker happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Hogue?
Thank you. As a past trustee and commissioner for the City of Southfield in the last 7 years, I am aware of the morale issues that the City of Southfield employees have. And no amount of degrees or experience takes the place of just human decency. And I think that one of the things that I do specialize is human relationships. And that's evidenced by actually just, as I move from corporation to corporation, I always have employees who are willing to follow me. And that's because I treat people fair, honest, and with integrity. And I think that as a council person, employees may not like the decisions that we have to make, do make, and can make, but they would appreciate being honest, open, and just being a good communicator with them. And I think if you just treat people with decency and fair and consistency, then I think morale will increase. And I'm willing to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Hogue. Mr. Lewis?
Yes, I think that the best way that, as a councilman, I could boost morale is ensuring that there's a hostile-free environment in the workplace. I believe that all people should be treated fairly. And I know that as a public official, I'm a servant for everyone. And I'm totally against discrimination against people based upon race, gender, or sexual orientation. I'm totally against that. And if I'm become a councilman, I'm going to make sure that all people are treated fairly. And also, I'm going to create an environment where city employees can come to council meetings and express their concerns. And if they have any concerns pertaining to abuses on the job place, pertaining to their race, gender, or their sexual orientation, I'm going to work with the mayor and city council to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Mandelbaum.
Morale with any employees is always very tricky. Everyone always has an issue, but one thing that was mentioned earlier is that we do have a spirit committee where the employees get together and they have a chili cookout and they do different things. We've also started a newsletter, the Southfield Source, which is an internal newsletter for the employees of the city, explaining different things in the city and highlighting different employees and departments. One thing that I would stress to our administration is to have a sit-down, an open dialogue with different departments at different times and hear what their concerns are. One thing that I've done on my time on council, I've met with the different departments, I've listened to their concerns, and I've taken them back to administration and to council. A lot of times it's really just a communication issue, and I think if we have the open lines of communication and people are not afraid to voice their concerns, it would help boost employee morale.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. Human resources is what I do. I've been in human resources for the past 25 years. Working on relationships and openness with our employees is very important, and how we do that is by respect. We want our employees to feel like we listen to them, let them know how important they are, and when they have issues that we're going to listen. It requires communication. It requires information. You have to disseminate information, but you also have to be willing to receive that information and then act on it. So what I see is partnering with all of our employees as well as with the management, having open dialogue, conversation, but doing it respectfully. As a council person, I've already visited several employees just to let them know who I am and that I'm open. They can talk to me at any time about anything. That's the main thing. You have to let them know that you're reachable and that you want and you're approachable and that you will listen. So that's what I do every day.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. We now have with us Mr. Lloyd Cruz. I'll work you into the rotation as we go along here. So the next question, we'll start with Ms. Habo. The question is, the city administration is considering making the treasurer and clerk positions appointed positions. How do you feel about this?
So those positions have not been appointed positions before, and I don't know if there are specific concerns as to why they want to make these appointed positions, but people in our community vote, and they should be able to do so. We've done this historically, and we shouldn't change the charter for something if there isn't an issue. I think Mr. Frazier actually said it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and this doesn't seem to be broken. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Habo. Mr. Hill.
Excuse me. We in Southfield believe in the democratic process. We have elected officials for these positions all of our lives. We should continue. I know that there is going to be a loss of a person that has been in the position for quite some time, and it seems like this arose after we were going to have a loss of the person who was going to be in the position that had been there for 18 years. However, we've always elected officials. People decide on who they want. That's the democratic process. That's the way it should be. That's what Southfield believes in. And we have a great city that can elect their own officials without being appointed. Because if you appoint someone, there could be that cloud of nepotism. And we wouldn't want that cloud of nepotism to come into our city. So I think this has been a process, it's been for a while. Let it stay.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Hogue.
Thank you. I think first and foremost, we have to understand that to make such a change, we have to take it to the people. We have to bring it before the people. I'm not saying I'm against it. However, I want to hear why we would make such a change. I think the council should hold forums with the residents of the city of Southfield and put their positions out there for the citizens to determine whether or not we need to change the ordinance. So I'm not against it. However, I do believe you need to take the issue to the people, hear their concerns, and then if the citizens believe that this should be the case, then we put it to a vote, we put it on the ballot. But I think first and foremost, we need to bring it to the residents of the city of Southfield and give the council, the administration, an opportunity to voice what it is they plan to do. But again, it's ultimately up to the citizens of Southfield.
Thank you, Ms. Hogue. Mr. Lewis.
To appoint the city clerk or the city treasurer is absolutely anti-democratic. It's against American values, and I am totally against it. I believe in a government that's for the people, of the people, and by the people, not a government by just a small few who come together and say, this is who we want. But I believe that Southfield residents are smart and intelligent enough to vote for a qualified city treasurer and city clerk. And it is completely anti-democratic in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Mandelbaum.
Thank you. It may be true that having an elected clerk and treasurer is only relevant now in 20% of the municipalities in Michigan, but that's what makes Southfield unique, in that we have a elected treasurer and an elected clerk. You have those checks and balances in order. It helps bring about transparency in those offices. Once you move to an appointed position, you can add nepotism. It can be a political appointee, and I think that is not how Southfield should be and how the residents would like their treasurer and clerk's office to be run, as a political appointee rather than an elected by the people position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. The city charter clearly states that the treasurer and the clerk is an elected position, and it would take a vote up from the people to make that change. I believe that this is a democratic process, that we should follow what our democracy is set up to do. If we want to make changes to the charter, we need to have education, transparency, explaining why, and then put it to the people and let the people choose if that's the way they want to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Cruz, did you hear the question?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Excuse me for being late today. Some of you all know I'm a professor at OCC, and tonight was class night, so I'm just leaving there to be here, so thank you for the opportunity. I can say that when this issue first came up, it was discussed at one of the subcommittees that I chair, the Legislative and Urban Affairs Committee, and we had some very long discussion about the pros and cons to elected versus appointed, and you should know that it was voted down or not recommended by the subcommittee. It still went before the full council and was voted down at that time again. I think those were the right decisions to be made. I'm not saying that something like that is not worthy of at least researching and looking into. I just really felt more than anything during an election year, this was absolutely the wrong time to even start discussing that, while you had people who had already submitted their names, collected signatures, raised money, and went in with the understanding that the position was a certain way, and then to take that and once they get elected, then change it, then I thought that would be unfair to the candidates.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Frazier.
Yes, that suggestion came to our council and came out of the subcommittee, and it did fail in the subcommittee. It came to the council. There's good news and bad news about both elected and appointed. With the good news of appointed is you can make sure that the person that gets appointed has the proper skills to do the job. And if you were here during the clerk debate, you heard how difficult the job is for the clerk to rather than make it just a popularity contest, then for appointing, then you pick someone that has the requisite skills. Same thing for the treasurer. You can either have a popularity contest for the treasurer or someone that has the capabilities and the knowledge to handle close to $100 million of your tax dollars. But the other side of it is, it's in the charter that we vote for the treasurer and the city clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. The next question will start with Mr. Hill. I feel that Southfield needs to make it easier for residents to follow the thread of an issue, start to finish. How would you make it easy for a voter to get a hold of a thread and follow it?
Open communication for that small little thread is very important. And I think on the city council, we do have the ability to communicate and let people know the issues. However, it's only through Comcast. Everybody doesn't have Comcast. So that little thread is even smaller now because you don't have the ability to see what's going on. And the citizens need and deserve to see what's going on. We did have a person that was doing their own video, so you can see it on YouTube. That's the way I got a lot of the material if I could not go. I think we need to invest or pay someone to have a second opinion or video so that we can see the current accountability, what's going on. Sometimes there's been problems with the cable system, and if you only have one system, how can you be accountable totally? So that little thread is getting smaller. We need to sit back and have more accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Hoag.
Thank you. I believe that in order to keep the residents informed of issues that are coming before council, I would look to creating a status report, make it available online, make it available via text for those who like to sign up for written newsletter. The bottom line is, it's not enough just to come to the council meetings and hear the issues, but it would be best to have a status report. As in any organization, you have a project management tool for which you use and everyone can access in order to know what's going on, the decisions that are made, who's making those decisions, what discussions are being brought before you. I think that we need to just keep the citizens abreast of the progress along an issue along the way and not just before council and at the end. They really need to know what's going on during the entire process, and that's just making a status report available. Make it available online, as I stated.
Thank you, Ms. Hoag. Mr. Lewis.
Yes, if I was to become councilman, the way that I would work diligently to keep residents informed, I would hold frequent coffee hours through technology, Facebook, Twitter. I think that it's important to keep the public well knowledgeable of everything that goes on in city government. Transparency is paramount in my opinion. And as a councilman, I would ensure that all residents are well informed.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Mandelbaum.
Thank you. Many of the issues that come before the council are discussed several times before a final decision is made. Many times they're brought by a resident. The city council has many different subcommittees, and they're discussed in the subcommittees, then they're discussed at a study session of the council, and then they're finally discussed at a regular session of the council. All of the meetings are publicized outside of the clerk's office with the date, time, and location, and also the meetings of the city council are all posted on the city's website. All the minutes, all the agendas, so all the residents can see what is being discussed, what is coming before the council. While many of the meetings may not necessarily be televised, residents do have the opportunity to come, listen, and that's why we make those minutes, the agendas available, as well as the meeting schedule. And hopefully that through all of those processes and those meetings, the residents can be well informed.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. I see that the city can make great improvements in open communication. There's a lot of information that the city has, and that's why I said transparency is key. They have to have a way of getting that information to the residents. You have to have more than one media. We have an excellent Cable 15. We have excellent communication teams. We have excellent ways of getting the information that we have out to the residents. However, we do a poor job of letting them know that we have it and where it is and how they can get it. It's not only available in media form, but it's also available in hard copy, or they can request a copy. You can have it mailed to you if you can't come pick it up. The city has it's a wealth of information. It's a lot of it there, but you are not informed as to how to get that information. So I think the city can improve how they disseminate information to residents and how they make them aware that the information is there and for them to receive.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Cruz.
Yes, I would say some of the same things mentioned already. I think technology is key to that, to improving the communication. Now, first of all, we know we do have the majority of all of our meetings. I mean, I guess all of them, anytime we made decisions, they have to be made public. And so, but I think the concern though is, are they easy and accessible? And I think that's what we need to work on. I would like to improve the budgeting around some of our technology areas to try to make it more user-friendly for the residents. One idea I had that we've used at the college is a platform that allows each of the students to create a portal. So every time they go into the college's website, it's tailor-made for them and all the things that they're interested in at the college, their majors and things of that nature. We could use something very similar to that to the citizens and residents so that things are easy to get to, one-click type items. But of course, we still need to have hard copy measures as well because everybody's not technologically savvy as well.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Frazier.
Could you read the question again, please?
Yeah, sure. I feel that Southfield needs to make it easier for residents to follow the thread of an issue, start to finish. How would you make it easy for a voter to get a hold of that thread and follow it?
Thank you. I think it's pretty difficult to have any one person, even the city council, to follow the thread all the way from the beginning to the end, to the final decision, because there are so many staff meetings that take place between the staff and the city administrator that even the city council aren't party to, that bring us a summary of what has been discussed in their staff meetings. We can do a better job of making what we get more public by and using the word transparency, but it would be very difficult because a lot of the things that we do are so complicated that for a person to follow the thread, they would have to spend their whole life going to every meeting that took place so they would know what took place in the meeting. But we can do a better job of following the Open Meetings Act and making the summaries available to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Habbo.
So a lot of people have already said some of the things that are ways that we can make the information accessible. One of the things that we can try to do is utilize the various types of technology and social media. Facebook Live is something that can be done so that everyone can access it. If they have access to the internet, they can watch the city council meetings live as they're happening. They can also make comments, and those things could be sent to the city council members who got new laptops. They could see the comments that are being made and questions that might be asked, and those are easy ways to create an open dialogue with people in the community. But also the Southfield Sun is really an easy way to get to everyone's door automatically, and minutes could be posted there or some other way to summarize what has happened so that even people who aren't comfortable and don't have access to technology can have access to their local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Habbo. The next question will start with Ms. Hogue. What is shared revenue, and did the state of Michigan ever give the city of Southfield their overdue portion?
Well, I can't say that I know if Southfield got its portion. I do apologize. However, shared revenue is what our portion of the bill that we'd have to pay back to the state of Michigan. Again, I don't know how it pertains to Southfield, so I do apologize for that. But this is definitely an example of a question for which that I'd have to have a learning curve as I step in as a city council person. So I'm not ashamed to admit that I don't know that answer, but I'm also willing to say that I would be studious and to learn that I must in order to continue to succeed as other council persons before me with no experience on the matter as well. So again, I am okay to say that I don't know that answer, but I will get myself on board by knowing those duties of the council as well as how it pertains to the state.
Thank you, Ms. Hogue. Mr. Lewis.
I think shared revenue is very important and essential to city government. And if I was to be elected to city council, I would work diligently with the mayor and all bodies of city government to make it work. I want to point out that I didn't have an opportunity to talk about one main issue of concern. One main issue of concern is the crumbling roads in Southfield. That's what I want to deal with. The roads and the infrastructures is falling apart. And no one has asked that question, but no one has even asked a question pertaining to roads. No one has asked a question pertaining to our environment, clean water, clean air. No one has asked a question pertaining to the unemployment rate, jobs. When I get in office, I want to create jobs. That's what I want to do.
Your time is up, Mr. Lewis. Thank you. Mr. Mandelbaum?
Yes. What is shared revenue? Shared revenue is taxes, sales tax collected by the state and divvied up amongst the different cities. Southfield is estimated to get just over $6 million over the fiscal 2018 year. Do we get our fair share? Absolutely not. The state has taken away a lot of our shared revenue to fill other gaps in the budget. We've been talking with our lobbyists, we've been talking with our state rep, trying to figure out ways that we can get the state to release more of that money that is due to the city to help with general fund maintenance. They're unrestricted funds. They can be used for anything. They can be used to fix roads. They can be used for some of that new technology. They can be used for anything that the city would deem necessary. But Southfield is definitely not getting their fair share, and it's something that we struggle with every budget cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. Ms. Taylor.
Yes, the city of Southfield is not receiving their fair portion. The city pays a lot more in taxes than what the state gives us back. We need to lobby with, communicate and have collaboration with our state representatives and see if there's ways that we can work to get more money coming back to the city so that we can do the things that we need to do here locally. And it is going into the general fund. It can be used for all kinds of things, and that's what we need to do, is make and decide and see if there's ways that we can come up with, by partnering with our state representatives and senators, to see if there's ways that we can get money to come back into the city.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Cruz.
Again, just as former two colleagues have already stated, Michigan and the state of Michigan, I think just in relationship to cities all throughout Michigan, are all struggling as it relates to this matter. I don't think anybody is any city or municipality is satisfied with the sharing that's taking place between us and Lansing. You know, I think we understand that the political climate in Lansing right now is one that's very divisive, and as has been mentioned, I know our Representative Moss and other Democrats, those that are Democrats up there helping to fight for this cause, But when the numbers are against you, it makes it a lot harder to get some of these things done. But this type of money is what helps us really fill in the gaps and get some of those extra projects and things done in the city that help make Southfield stand out from many other cities. So again, I think we have to continue to work as hard as we can, work together as cities in that regard too, to see if we can have a coalition of us that are really pushing for these types of things.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Frazier?
I can echo the comments made by other council members and people that have studied the issue. And the answer is no. We don't get our fair share back. We're considered a donor city. And the donor city means that we're sending more money to Lansing than we get our fair share back. And when we don't get our fair share back, there are projects that we have to put on the shelf or put on the back burner. The way it can be fixed is by the lobbyists or appealing directly to the state legislature to make sure that we get back what we're due and make sure that we can use that money to do a lot of the things that the cards that have been set forth tonight have asked us to do. So the bottom line is no, we don't get our fair share back.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Habo?
Because the city isn't getting its fair share, one of the important things that we can do to basically fill in the gap that we are getting from the state is that we can be more restrictive and limiting in the tax abatements that we give to corporations that come to our community. Instead of giving huge tax abatements to companies like Credit Acceptance, who are predatory lenders in our community, we can put that money into our communities themselves. And those corporations, by paying taxes, have now created bonds and ties with our community because the money that they are paying goes into the community that they are in. Credit Acceptance specifically is a company that is a predatory lender, and they have been sued by many attorney generals from various states, and they got a pretty large tax abatement from the city council. And that's one of the concerns that I have, is that we're not being selective in that way about who is in our community and what value they bring to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Habo. Mr. Hill?
I have to concur with Coretta. I wasn't familiar with the exact amounts. I know that we weren't getting our fair share because I've gone to several meetings and I've heard that. But when it comes down to data and figures, it's not something that I'm privy to. But if we're not getting that money, we can probably utilize the money that we do have in a more effective way. And that's something that I think we needed to look at, effective spending of our tax dollars. Because sometimes you see issues when you go to those meetings and you wonder if they could spend the money a little wiser. Did we need the parking lot across the street for $2 million? Possibly not, because we don't know what we're doing with it yet. So effective spending of our tax dollars is a very important thing. So no, like I said, I will find out more information on how much the state is not reimbursing, but effective spending of our tax dollars is very important. And it may be $3 million now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. The next question will start with Mr. Lewis. What is the current council doing that you approve of or agree with?
I think that the current council is making a strong initiative towards the betterment of our community. When I go to the council meetings, I see a strong camaraderie between the mayor and a lot of the city council members, and I applaud that. However, if I become city councilman, there are several things that I want to do. I want to create a stronger educational system for our students. I was on the school board for 8 years, and there was hardly no communication between the council and the school officials. If I become a councilman, I would reach out to school officials in order to create a more viable educational system for our community. Secondly, I want to create a safer community. creating a safer community by putting more street lights in the community.
Your time is up, Mr. Lewis.
By
Your time is up.
staffing more policemen and firemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Mandelbaum.
As a current council person, I definitely think there's a lot that we're doing right, and we're doing it well. One thing that we started out 2 years ago is we sat down and had a visioning session. We all, the council, mayor, sat down in this room for a number of hours to create a vision that we want for the next 2 years. We've been working on that vision. We have great communication. We get along great as a team, and we're really doing everything that we can to help the residents of the city. Our road projects, we are currently leading Oakland County for the third year in a row in road projects at $50 million just this year, 9 of which came from federal and state grants. But the city we are tackling everything from code enforcement issues, road issues, technology issues, and working well together, communicating, and talking about the issues that affect the residents of Southfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. As a current council person, I must say that the city council is doing a wonderful job. This council took the time, sat down, and set goals for themselves. They have a set of 30 goals that they discuss and work towards each and every day. Communication is great. We may not be perfect, but we work well perfectly. So I think that what we're currently doing is working, that we are communicating, we are setting goals for ourselves, and we are working for the residents. We are working on disseminating information, disseminating the ways that we're working together, letting you know that we are being transparent and that we get along, we discuss issues that come up, and we want the residents to know that we hear you when you talk to us. If you talk to one, you talk to all. We talk amongst ourselves. We discuss issues that's going on within the city, and we come to conclusions together. We're a well-oiled working machine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Cruz.
Yes, I just have to say, the first thing that came to my mind was the visioning session that we had as a new council, and I really appreciate the mayor and our council president for leading that task for us. It's important for any group, especially a new group coming together like that, to have some type of vision and direction on where you're going. It's more than just coming in here, grabbing a seat and taking a vote on things. You want to have a direction. You want to have very clearly defined goals and outcomes. And we were able to do that. And I think, I know that after this election, we'll be sitting down to do the same thing. Reevaluate things that have been accomplished, look at some new things that we'd like to get done over the next couple of years. And I think that has been a very positive. One other thing I can say since the time I've been on council too, is that our subcommittees are meeting a lot more vigorously than they ever have before. When I first got on council, they met very seldomly, if at all at times. Now all of them are working very hard, and when I think that's helping to get the direction of the council moving and getting things done a lot quicker than before.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Frazier.
Yes, I also feel that the current council is working together well as a team, along with the mayor and the city administrator. And one of the things that makes me feel so good is that I have been on councils in the past where there were council members didn't even like each other, and instead of debating the issues, they were debating whether or not they were liking each other, and as a consequence, not very much got done as well as it could be. I am very proud of the fact that this council, the mayor and the city administrator, while we may be coming from different directions, we're debating the issues, and we respect each other's input, we respect each other's thoughts, and then we have a decision made. And once again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Habo?
So one of the things that I've noticed from coming to city council meetings is that the city council currently has created great opportunities for the heads of departments to be able to succeed, Parks and Rec specifically, and Human Services. They have allowed those heads to create great programming for our communities, and that's one thing that's needed is working with the departments in the city government to make sure that people in our community have access to various programming and various services. There's no point in having a government if they don't serve you. And I think one important thing that the City Council does is they work very well with the heads of departments. Again, Parks and Rec specifically, they even work with the Commission on Senior Adults, where I work with that group. And what we do is create a lot of opportunities to improve the community for people of all ages, specifically for seniors in our community, to make sure that they have access to various services and also various programming so that seniors are just like everyone else. And they need to have access to various fun activities, not just putting ramps in. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Habo. Mr. Hill.
Could you repeat the question? It's been so long.
Yeah, sure. If I can find it. Here we go. I put it away. What is the current council doing that you approve of or agree with?
Okay. They're trying to be a little more transparent, it seems. It seems as though they're trying to be a little more transparent, which is something that's necessary. And because you need to work with the people, and I did notice that there were a few complaints about a few issues in the past, and I believe the squeaky wheels get the grease. Well, there was a lot of squeaking going on, and it seems as though the council did try to work with the people to try to come up with solutions. And you should always try to come up with solutions for the residents, because it's about the people of Southfield. And that part I was happy to see, because I was starting to see a lot of distinction and unhappiness in the people that were coming in front of the council. I mean, really bad conversations where they almost had to stop fights. I hate to say it. So that part, to put out those kind of fires, is very helpful. But I think we need a few more visionary leaders, a little bit more leadership in the visionary manner on the City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Hogue?
Thank you. One of the things I agree with was the stop of the sewage and septic tank issue. Now the difference is, if you look on my website, Coretta for Council, the number 4, Coretta for Council, immediately I gave the resolution to say, stop, allow residents to recertify their septic tank systems or correct it. I would not have waited until election time to stop it. We need a council that will continue to do the work for the residents in a time and matter for which they need it done. Some of the decisions that come before council are life impacting, and that was one of them. And it should not have gotten as far as it did, where people put money into their homes, lost their homes, and then for the council to say, we'll stop and redo this again. I said that from day one. So they did do something right. The timing of it could have been better, not during election time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hogue. The next question will start with Mr. Mandelbaum. With the natural disasters that have been occurring, such as floods, what would you do to improve the city's preparedness plan?
The city currently has a Director of Homeland Security, Captain Bill Johns, and he is constantly updating the disaster preparedness plan. We have shelters in place in case it's needed, one being City Hall, one being Beechwoods, once it's reopened after its renovations. And we're always looking at ways that we can try to prevent a lot of the issues. For the flooding issue, I was affected, my basement flooded, and the city has taken great strides in fixing a lot of these sewer issues, the water issues, where we're spending millions of dollars while we redo our roads to make sure that the sewer systems are upgraded to handle increased water, increased rainwater, sewage, and many other things. We're also constantly doing test disaster preparedness drills with the police and firefighters and EMS to make sure they know what to do in case of a natural disaster or any disaster.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. One of the things that we did when I was on the Planning Commission is revise the code so that we do not have all this parking space where the water just runs off into the sewer and the drains. That would help tremendously with the flooding and the backing up of water. So I'm working towards improving code, improving the way that the city is addressing a lot of the flood issues that we've had in the past to prevent them from happening in the future. We do have a wonderful Homeland Security officer, Officer Bill Johns, who's doing all kinds of training. He keeps us up to date. There's manuals in and around the city to make you aware of places that you can contact in cases of emergency, and they make that information known, not just to the residents, but also to the leaders of the city. So I think the city of Southfield is doing a good job of keeping information out there, and they're planning not just for today, but for the future, for disasters that might happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Cruz.
Yes, once again, I think this is an area that's already in pretty good shape. As already been stated before, we do have a very excellent Homeland Director in Mr. Johns, and he's very regularly at council meetings updating us on the things that he is working on, and you know, he's taking his lead and direction in times from Washington, D.C., and getting, you know, making sure that we are up to speed as any other city our size should be. Multiple trainings and workshops for police, fire, first responders, and so forth. So again, I really do believe that should something occur of that nature, that the city is well prepared. Maybe the only thing that, because the question was asked, and maybe that information too maybe is not being made available enough to everybody to know that it exists, and so that may be something we might have to look into, add to make sure that people know where to find that information.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Frazier.
Yes, again, it's one of those things that we prepared for, and whenever the first responders, and the first responders are the police, fire, and the EMS and the Homeland Security, come to the council and ask for tools that help them do their job better, we've purchased the tools for them so that that's not a handicap with them getting their job done. But I want to turn the question back to you in the audience, and that is, there are, on all of these committees that we've talked about, there are openings. And you as a resident, if you want to see the city grow and do better, volunteer for these openings. Mr. Johns would be more than happy to entertain new volunteers on his Homeland Security. They need more people. Other committees need more people. So we're ready. You need to be ready.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Habbo?
So one of the things that we need to do is make sure that the disaster preparedness plan is regularly updated. And another thing that we can do is, like Mr. Frazier was just talking about the first responders, make sure we have enough hired. We have a huge gap in how many fire and police officers that we need in our community, and we're short. And so it's really important that we fill in those spaces so that we have adequate first responders if any sort of emergency does arise. Southfield is actually used by a lot of other local cities. Our fire is used very often, and so it's really important that we aren't spread way too thin so that our community itself is still served. So the two things that I would do is make sure we have regular updates and make sure that we hire enough first responders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Habbo. Mr. Hill.
I would like to echo what Mr. Cruz and Sarah stated. First of all, the city preparedness plan, yes, I think we need to have that information to the people. I mean, because if you have a city preparedness plan but nobody knows about it, it should go out to the people to help them understand what to do. You know, that's the part of that portion. And second, we have a strong fire and the police department. And when I'm elected, I want to make sure that they're adequately funded so that they can make sure they have enough people, they can do the job properly, adequately funded to make sure that they have enough people. As Daryl Harble said, they're understaffed. And if they're spread thin by taking care of Lathrop Village, how can they sit back and do their jobs? There was a big fire in Southfield, and I heard that they had to call in other people to handle that fire. possibly because of the understaffing. So to make sure that they're adequately staffed is imperative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Hoag?
Thank you. According to our incumbents, we are well when it comes to our disaster plan. I'll take them at their word. However, I think we could do more. I'm proud to say that I am a CERT resident. I am Certified Emergency Response Team. However, I had to get my certification through the city of Detroit. And that's because I received more information from that area than the city of Southfield, for which I've been living in for nearly 20 years. So I think what we need to do is to give the information as was stated to the residents, encourage them to become CERT certified, because the first thing you should do is to help yourself. Then we need to engage our business in the city of Southfield. Make sure that they are prepared. So a disaster can happen while you're at work. So we need to engage the larger communities, the larger organizations, as such as Blue Cross Blue Shield. Engage them, work with them, because we're gonna need all if we are forced with a disaster plan. But it starts with you. Make sure our residents are educated, encourage them to become CERT certified, and we work together with the city in time of need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoag. Mr. Lewis?
Yes, as a councilman, I want to work with Homeland Security to ensure that the city is prepared to tackle any natural disasters. But I want to say one thing. You can have a plan, a strategic plan in place in how to carry out necessary processes in case natural disasters occur. But if you don't have the staffing to implement that plan, then there's no way as a city we are prepared for it. And I've sat down and talked to firemen. I sat down and talked to policemen, and they told me, Mr. Lewis, we are understaffed. What can you do if you become city councilman to help hire more policemen and more firemen? And if I'm elected, I will work diligently to that. I want to say one thing. I think that our policemen and our firemen are the most underappreciated. Okay, thank you.
The next question will start with Ms. Taylor. What can you do as a council member to make sure that our neighborhoods continue to feel protected?
As currently, we have community policing. We meet with our homeowners association members. We have citizens academies to introduce the residents to the police officers and help them to become more aware of them and friendly, to know that you can approach and talk to the police officers. What I would try to do is continue that relationship with the police officers and the neighborhoods throughout various different outings. The police officers have like coffees, they have picnics, they have book fairs, all kinds of things to introduce the public to our officers. And I think that's something we should continue.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Cruz?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, increased police presence is always a benefit to a community, and it's going to help deter folks from doing things wrong and going to make those of us that are here in the communities feel even safer. Is the numbers of police officers down? Yeah, they are. Is it because we don't want to fund them? No, that's not the case at all. But there's also a recruitment problem when it comes to police officers, and it's not just here in Southfield. It's all across the country. So Chief Hawkins is doing the best he can to get more officers here on the street. He's looking at different techniques to deploy our officers throughout the city so that the presence is there. Also, we also have a number of ordinances that are in place that are specifically designed to try to help deter crime in our neighborhoods. For instance, no parking on the streets after a certain time period, and also many other ordinances we have about, things that you can have in your yards, covering windows and things like that help make it safer.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Frazier?
Yes, one of the first things that I would suggest is get to know your neighbors. Once you get to know your neighbors, then you can help each other. But our response time is 4 to 5 minutes on the police. If something happens in your neighborhood and you call the police, the average response time is 4 to 5 minutes. And one of the reasons that Southfield, I believe, one of the reasons that Southfield doesn't have the problems that you hear about on the news in other communities is, yeah, we're short of police officers, but we want to make sure we get the right police personnel to deal with the situation here in Southfield. If we just hire somebody and stick them in a blue suit and run them out to the community, one police officer can make the whole police force look bad and create a havoc within the community. The same with firefighters. Make sure that we get the right firefighters that have the right temperament to do the job right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Habel?
Community policing is really important because in a lot of communities, having a bigger police presence doesn't necessarily make people feel safer. In the current climate, there are issues involving police brutality, and that's something we can't ignore, especially in our community where it's predominantly black. And so having community policing is important because that creates a relationship between neighbors in their community. One of the things that we can do is create programming so that our kids are busy. We won't have idle hands. So creating some free programming in the summers and also things that can supplement what the schools are teaching during the school year can be good to keep kids out of trouble. And another thing that people have told me consistently is speeding in the neighborhoods. I know that would make a lot of people feel a lot safer in their communities if they knew that we were monitoring speeders in the various neighborhoods so that there aren't any sort of mailboxes being hit or any sort of risk to children out on the streets playing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Habel. Mr. Hill?
I want to reiterate that we do have a strong fire in the police department, and they make great selections on their personnel. So that's why I wanted to make sure that they're adequately funded so that they can keep the best of the best. You don't want just the bottom of the barrel, ever, ever. It makes your city look bad. But I'm going to go into another direction. I've talked to several people, and Southfield is a rural environment. When I moved here, we didn't have many street lights. It was nice. I liked that. 27 years ago, it was okay. But we do have people moving in, and there's a change. People want to walk. People want to ride bikes, and they want to do it. It gets dark here at 5 o'clock, and they still want to exercise. The community is getting more mature. So the rural environment may need to change to add more street lighting so that people can feel safe. We wouldn't want it to become a nesting ground for criminal activity. Lighting may help.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Hogue?
Thank you. I would agree with everything that's been stated. More police presence, increased staffing level of the police department, more resources to the police, more salary. I would agree with all of that. I think if I had to take a different direction, it would be to build upon the neighborhood associations, support them more. In all of my years, I know that a good community starts with the neighbors. As you know your neighbors, you're able to share. When I moved to Southfield, the first thing I learned was the code through my neighbors. You know, if I put the garbage out too soon, someone was knocking on my door. Coretta, you do that after 6. I appreciate that because as we've already stated here, a lot of things doesn't get disseminated to the residents. So it's all about the neighborhood. Start there. When you build a strong neighborhood, you build a strong community. And I think as a city, we should support the neighborhood associations by going out to the meetings. I know when I was in my association, it was rare that the city council came out. So we should support them by resources, by in presence, and ensuring that we are up on our code enforcement as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hogue. Mr. Lewis?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Of course, sure. What can you do as a council member to make sure that our neighborhoods continue to feel protected?
Well, increase police and firemen and EMS. What I want to do is increase the response time. We should have even greater response time whenever there's a incident that occurred in the community. As I was saying that I believe that our firemen and our policemen are the most underappreciated. They put their lives on the line day to day. They sacrifice their lives. But City Council has failed to pay them what they're worth. City councilman has mistreated our policemen. They've mistreated our firemen. And if I become a councilman, I'm going to stand up for them. I'm a teacher. And teaching is a profession that most people look down on. And I know how it feels to be looked down on. And if I become
Thank you,
city
Mr. Lewis.
councilman,
Your time is
I'm
up.
going to look out for the working class people.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Mandelbaum.
Keeping our neighborhoods protected and have our residents feel safe is definitely important. That recent FBI crime stats had another decrease in crime in Southfield. I think we're going on 14 years straight. Our police chief has been coming up with new innovative programs and ideas and different task forces that he's joining and having our officers partake in to help with making our neighborhoods feel safer. We do a lot of community outreach. We have community policing officers. We have officers who will come to your home and do a safety assessment. We had an open house for the fire department. We had an open house for the police department. We do have the Citizens Academy. We do have a Youth Citizens Academy. We do a lot of outreach and communication for our residents in order to help them understand what is needed and what the city is doing to make the neighborhoods a safer place.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. This will be the last question before we do closing statements. And the question will start with Mr. Cruz. What do you see as the #1 issue facing Southfield, and how would you work to solve it?
I guess I wouldn't call it an issue, but I think the #1 matter that is before the city right now is the management and development of the Northland property. We have probably invested so much into this at this point that we've got to get this right. And so I want people to be rest assured of the fact that just because right now you haven't seen any buildings falling down yet or anything like that at this point, understand there's a lot of work that happens far before that has to happen, okay? And so we've not been sitting on this. We've been working, and you will very soon start to see some physical progress on that development site. And understand too that this is not a 2-3 year project either. Really, honestly, 8 to 10 years is going to be something that we're going to be talking about North Atlanta as we continue to develop around there. But I think that right there can be the rebirth, if you will, in a way for Southfield, or historic in the way that Northland was when it was built as the first mall in America, that our development will be that special as well.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Frazier.
Yes, if you'd asked me this question about 3 years ago, I would have said roads. But we've put so much money in roads that roads have fallen down on the list of priorities. And I agree with my co-partner here, Mr. Cruz, that Northland is now as far as I'm concerned, the top issue with the city. And it's not a negative issue, it's a positive issue. We have a vision for what we want to see over it at Northland, and if we develop our vision into a real development, I think everyone will be proud that they've waited along with us to make sure that it gets done. We're almost ready to start demolishing the Firestone store, and we should be doing that before the end of October, along with Target store. So some things are going to start moving. Bricks are going to start falling. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Habel.
People are the most important thing in our community. So the most important thing that we can do is make sure that our neighborhoods are being taken care of. People have a lot of concerns about the roads within the neighborhoods being fixed. And I think that's one thing that we've failed in repairing is the neighborhoods themselves. There are a lot of seniors in our community and also people who have low income who are unable to maintain their properties, who need help. And creating programming that supports them is really important. One of the things that we focus on a lot in Southfield is businesses, and that's great. But you don't have people going to businesses if you don't have people in the community. And so we need to make sure that the people in our community feel like they have value being part of our community. And taking care of them is something that we can do to show them that the city values you as part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hebo. Mr. Hill.
I concur with Ms. Hubble. People are very important. And my platform is for the health of our city. So I will work with the council to increase and protect our water. Water is very important, and we have to make sure that we protect it. We do have a sinkhole here in Southfield, and in May I said, so we decreased the water and sewer budget from 25 million down to 9 million. I said, does that include the sinkhole? And I didn't hear any back from them. And I found out that that 40-foot sinkhole is going to cost, well, so far it's about 5.9 million. Protecting our water is very important because you see what happens when water is compromised. You see it, our sister city to the north. So that, to me, is the most important part. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Hogue.
Thank you. I think if I were asked this question 2 weeks ago, clearly my answer would have been the septic tank issue. But since that was resolved, I think I would have to say just the livelihood of residents. I think that in this day and time, we're plagued with a lot of societal issues for which City Council, it may not necessarily be their responsibility to resolve, but it certainly can be the council's position to help. And that may be help of addiction that's in families, you know, being able to find resources for problems that affect families and their way of lives. We have a very old structure community. I think a lot of our homes and lands are very old. Looking to see where we can help bring some resources to the resident, whether that's to help them with grants, just, you know, be an arm of the city that can find means and ways to help our residents. It's more, but I think that that's what the city needs. I think we need to help people have an enjoyable life. And I think that as a city council person, I would look to find resources that are maybe outside of the city that can help the citizens.
Thank you, Ms. Hogue. Mr. Lewis.
I want to point out that there's initially 4 things that I'm going to stand up for if I become city councilman. That's education, roads, safety, and I want to reduce the unemployment rate. I want to increase jobs. I want to point out that when I was a member of Southfield School Board, I was a member for 8 years, and I was oftentimes criticized by my colleagues for being the only lone voter on a lot of issues. Like, for instance, I voted against a millage increase that has crippled a lot of you all that is watching this forum tonight. And if I'm elected to Southfield City Council, no matter what, if all 6 council members are against me, I'm going to fight for a stronger educational system. I'm going to fight for better roads. I'm going to fight for safety. I'm going to fight for more staffing in the police force, the fire force, and I'm going to fight to reduce the unemployment rate. I want Southfield residents working. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Mandelbaum.
I definitely agree with my colleagues that Northland is a big issue, but I think that getting information to the residents, letting residents know what the city has to offer is a big issue. One thing that I propose to the council and mayor, which they've agreed to, is putting together a program, Southfield 101. Southfield offers a lot of different programming, a lot of resources. We have so much to offer our residents, but as was stated before, there's not a lot that the residents may know that we offer. They may not know how to access information. They may not know where to go to get the information, or may not even know what that information is that they don't know. And one thing that I think is a very important issue is making sure residents know where to go to get information or how to go about asking to get the proper information that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. I agree Northland is very important, but to me, the residents are at the very top. We spend a lot of time working with our businesses. We need to also spend time with our residents. We need to listen to the concerns that they have and take the advice of the things they'd like to see brought back into the city, such as jazz concerts. As I'm walking, a lot of people tell me that all the time, that they just want basic things to come back to the city. In addition, city workers' morale is extremely important. We, the residents, rely on our city workers for almost everything that happens within the city. And a happy employee serves a whole lot more people with a better attitude, knowing that they're being respected and that they're being taken care of and that they're being listened to. I think that the two areas that we need to work on the most is with our residents, listening and giving them the things they would like to have, and then listening to our city workers and trying to improve the morale amongst our employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. That concludes the question portion of this forum. Now the candidates will have a chance to make a closing statement, 1 minute each, and they'll do this in reverse alphabetical order. And after these candidates are done, we are going to invite candidates for mayor and treasurer up to the dais. At the time that we planned this forum, we did not realize that there were write-in candidates for each of those offices. So we will be allowing them to have a few minutes to speak to you tonight after these guys are done. So candidates' closing statement, we'll start with Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum tonight, and I would like to thank you for coming out. My name is Lenny Taylor, and I am running to retain my seat on council. I bring my knowledge, education, experience, and years of service to this council to help move Southfield forward. We are not perfect, but we work perfectly together. Please vote for me, Lenny Taylor, on November the 7th, and remember, Lenny is tailor-made for Southfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Mandelbaum.
When I became your councilman, I made a commitment to ensure a better Southfield for our families, neighborhoods, and businesses. From improving roads to improving the economy, I am working hard around the clock to improve your quality of life. I've worked to improve the economy with roads and redevelopment, improving the neighborhoods with updated codes, and improving the community with new plans for parks and recs and a sustainable Southfield. Those are only some of the accomplishments I've helped to bring about, but there's still more to do. Send me back to the council so I can continue working for you. For more information, you can visit my website, mandelbaumforcouncil.com. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters, the residents for coming out, the library staff, as well as Cable 15 for televising this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. Mr. Lewis.
In closing, I want to reiterate that I am a special education teacher, ordained minister, author, editor, public advocate, and third-degree Prince Hall Mason. I'm a graduate of University of Michigan, and I hold a Master of Arts degree from Wayne State University and Ashland Theological Seminary. I want to use my 20 years of experience as a special education teacher, 8 years of public office experience as an intern at the United States House of Congress and the world headquarters of Ford Motor Company. I believe that my experience and my education make me qualified to serve all of you that is watching this forum tonight. If you give me the opportunity to be your councilman, I will not let you down. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Hogue.
Thank you. The council acts on behalf of all residents and stakeholders to promote the good of the entire community, with the goal of maximizing the delivery of services to as many people as possible at the lowest possible cost. I'm not here representing a particular group or a single issue in my desire to seek this position. My actions and my decisions will be made with the goal of achieving the greatest good for the greatest number of people within Southfield. I will always weigh and uphold the public interest. I will present myself by being prepared, I will listen, and I will contribute. You will not find me hiding from an issue by abstaining from any vote simply because I'm afraid to make my position known. I will always make an objective, well-informed decision with the utmost due diligence as our actions affect the everyday lives of the residents of Southfield. So I ask you to give me your support on November 7th by voting for Coretta Hogue for City Council. That's Coretta for Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoag. Mr. Hill.
Hello, my name is Harold Hill. I pledged a fraternity called Alpha Phi Alpha. One of the things that we truly believe in is, first of all, servants of all, we shall transcend all, not some, but all. And so my platform is for the health of the city. I planned on looking out and protecting our water. Second, keeping a strong police, as I mentioned earlier, and fire. Third, making sure the city stays financially sound and fiscally fit, making good decisions, business decisions on our purchases. I have a bachelor's degree in business, minor in marketing, and biomedical science as a minor. I will use my 30 years of experience in the pharmaceutical arena, marketing arena, to sit back and make those business decisions and make sure the city continues to move forward. We need more visionary leaders on the council, and I want to be that one. My name is Harold Hill. Vote for the health of your city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Habbo.
One, thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you again to the residents, all of you for showing up and supporting us in this endeavor. I am not a politician. This is my first time ever running. I am a public servant. This is a value that I learned in Southfield. It's something that my parents taught me and something that Southfield really honed. And one of the things that drove me to run for city council is wanting to serve my community in a different way. I love serving. I serve as a soccer coach. I also serve with the National Lawyers Guild as a legal observer, making sure that people's First Amendment rights are protected when they're protesting against the government. I also work with Fit Kids 360, which is a program where we help create fit families, where we help them make good food choices and create fitness as just part of their lives. And so what I want to do for Southfield is be able to serve my community and give back to a community that has given me so much. And the way that I've chosen to do that is to run for city council. So I'm hoping that on November 7th, you'll take a moment and consider me as a candidate for the city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Habbo. Mr. Frazier.
Yes, again, my name is Myron Frazier, and I'm running to retain my seat on City Council. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting and sponsoring this meeting this evening, and all of you residents and well-wishers to come out and listen to us talk for a little over an hour. The reason I'm running is I'm a born volunteer. I can trace my volunteer services back to when I was about 8 years old, living on the other side of the state. My parents encouraged me, encouraged all of us children to do volunteer work. Now it's part of my DNA. I love the city of Southfield, and I want to serve you. I still have fire in my belly to make the city of Southfield an even better place to live. So we have a team on the council and mayor that works well together, and I would like to see that continue. You have 4 votes. Vote 1 for Myron Frazier, 3 for the rest of the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Mr. Cruz.
Yes, good evening. Again, my name is Lloyd Cruz, and I also want to thank the League of Women's Voters for having us here today. When I first ran for council back in 2013, I ran under the mantra that Southfield was a city that was too good not to be great. And since that time, I think I've seen nothing but let the city move and progress in a very positive way. What people want generally in the city are many of the same things. We're all looking for, good roads. We want neighborhoods safe, code enforcement, things of that nature. So, I think we're all here for many of the same reasons. And it's hard when you work for a legislative body to ever pull out any one thing that you can say that you did, because everything takes at least 4 votes or more. So that's why the team portion of this discussion, or what I want to say, is very important. We have a very good working group between the current council and our mayor, and I think it has shown to benefit the city in a number of different ways. So I think what's going to best benefit the city moving forward is to keep the team together by voting for Lloyd Cruz and the rest of the team.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Thank you to all the candidates and the audience for participating in this forum. Let's give these candidates a round of applause. thought that the mayor, Ken Siver, and the treasurer, Irv Lowenberg, were running unopposed. So we were not prepared for this portion of the forum. But it has come to our attention that there are write-in candidates for each position, so I'm going to introduce them and give each person 2 minutes to talk about their qualifications and answer the question what they think the #1 issue is facing the city of Southfield. So we will start with Mr. Ken Siver. He's running for mayor, and also on the ballot will be not on the ballot, but another write-in candidate is Mark Motley. So Mr. Siver, please proceed, and he has 2 minutes.
All right, good evening. I am a longtime Southfield resident, 50 years of life experience in this community, and I've been a very active resident, excuse me, as well as councilman and mayor. I am very responsive to our citizens. I show up, I do my homework, and I get back to everybody. I treat all of our residents with respect and pride myself in my responsiveness. My priorities are and always have been roads, neighborhood vitality, public safety, redevelopment, and attraction and retention of businesses. As a councilman and mayor, I've supported the rebuilding of Southfield roads. We're leading the county for the 3rd year in a row with road construction. I believe strongly in neighborhood vitality. As in such, I've developed numerous partnerships to reinvest and maintain Southfield's housing stock. Along with that, curb appeal, code enforcement, and rental home registration and inspections are very important, and we've stepped up all of that. I believe in having an excellent police and fire and EMS services, and supported the training and new equipment for our first responders. With Southfield's boom years, decades past, redevelopment is the key to the city's future. The former Northland site, turning it into a mixed-use development is paramount, as is the continued creation of our city center with a sense of place and public art and walkable spaces. Again, with attracting most of our tax base is tied into our business community, and so we need to keep attracting business here. I'm pleased to report that in the last year we have 2,500 new jobs in this city. And our office vacancies have declined considerably. Under my leadership, with strong support from the City Council and administration, a great deal has been accomplished in the past 2 years, and my aim is to keep that momentum going.
Thank you,
I ask for your vote on November 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Siver. Again, Mr. Siver is running for mayor of Southfield. And running for treasurer, we have write-in candidate John Edwards. Mr. Edwards, you have 2 minutes to make a statement about your qualifications for treasurer.
Hi, my name is John Edwards. I'm a Southfield resident, a 3rd-generation entrepreneur, and actually I'm a tech CEO that have owned my own company for about 25 years. I'm a federal contractor, and as a federal contractor, I assist school districts in actually accessing the internet, and I've been very effective in working with over 500 school districts, mostly urban school districts with 75% poverty rates. And actually I've, instead of having information ghettos where you have the suburban high-end school districts that actually have internet access, you actually have urban schools that actually have gigabit speed, high-tech infrastructures. If I'm elected treasurer, I'd like to make Southfield a more international city. I lived and worked in Japan. I speak Japanese. I have many business affiliates in Japan, China, Asia, throughout the United States, and actually I've built technology teams that actually are very diverse, that actually operate in very different markets. And with my company, I'm actually, as a federal contractor, I'm a part of the FCC Z-Rate program that does $3 billion a year, and I've actually assisted 500 of those school districts in actually managing their internet infrastructure over that time. I seek to transform Southfield into an international business environment and actually attract more international development into the city. Now that Southfield is over 70% African American, I'd like to see the administration reflect that, not only in the police force, but in terms of the jobs, the people that actually work, that are the, we talk about all of the appointee positions that should be, according to the charter, they're actually supposed to be Southfield residents. And currently you have like the city administrator, you have the person that is actually over the city law department. They don't live in the city. And actually, for this city, with us being under this huge burden of tax debt, it makes sense for us actually to have administration that reflects us.
Thank
I
you,
ask for your
Mr.
vote on the
Edwards.
7. John Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Mr. Irv Lowenberg.
Thank you very much, League of Women Voters, for the opportunity to address the audience and as well as the viewing audience at home. I really appreciate the opportunity to serve as your treasurer for the last 12 years. I was given the special opportunity to approach this position right at a time in 2005 when we were at the point, in a major transition point in the city's future at that point. We were peaking out in terms of real estate values, and I started seeing cracks in terms of the market, for the housing market. And I sounded the alarm bells at that time, and I said that there's a tsunami coming potentially. With the foreclosures, we started hearing more and more phone calls about prices and about the rates that the houses are dropping by, and we had to prepare. And fortunately, I worked together with the administration and with the city council, and we together worked on a hiring freeze at that point. We ended up having a deficit reduction plan to make sure that we were going to be able to weather a financial storm. We didn't know to what extent. We thought it was going to be a small one, but instead it was really a tsunami. It was huge. And by the time we had back-to-back years of drops of approximately 20%, we were able to weather that storm intact, with offering the same city services that everyone came to know and appreciate, all without laying off a single individual. We were able to, with that hiring freeze that we had in place, we were able to have 40% less employees by the time at our worst point financially, and we were able to make do by consolidating our services, by using technology, and doing everything we can. I ask for your vote November 7th. It's very, very important to keep the fiscal stability. Our performance has been in the top 10% in the entire United States in terms of our fiscal performance. Last year, we had a $5.5 million budget surplus, and thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Lowenberg. Thank you to these candidates. Let's give these candidates a round of applause. All right, thank you everybody for being here tonight. I want to thank the candidates again, you the audience, the library for hosting us, Cable 15 for filming tonight's events, and when we know the rebroadcast times, we'll put them on the League's website, lwvoa.org, and I'm sure Cable 15 will have them on their website too. For further nonpartisan information about these candidates and others, check our website, lwvoa.org. The League is funded by contributions from concerned businesses and citizens. Remember to vote on November 7th. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you so much, everybody.